Firing. He's going for Landry down by the end zone. A tumbling catch for a touchdown. He's to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown. Is this how it feels to win?
Welcome back, Survivors, episode 46, season 4. This is Surviving the Season live from the Pasig City studios in Manila. I am Adam, and special guest Jack Duffin joining me in the studio. Greg is incapacitated for today, so Jack, thanks for joining me today.
Mate, absolutely buzzing. My favourite Browns podcast. It's going to be really weird this week because I get all excited for it, and now I won't be able to download it and listen to it on the train.
So there's no listening back to this. Jack Duffin is at Jack Duffin, Duffin. He is a bit of a divisive Twitter follow. So Jack, why don't you talk to me about your Twitter following and kind of what's happening to you on social media, because you're fairly aggressive and I appreciate that.
I just give my honest opinion on things, and at the time I said stuff like the Zeitler trade, an absolute disaster, and everyone's like, no, it's great, we should be doing this. The analytics and the football guys both said, no, you're getting an upgrade, it's fine. And lo and behold, what's happened? Oh, I was right. You've had the OBJ trade. I said, we're overpaying here. We don't need to give up like a first, a third, Peppers, give up on Higgins, give up on Perryman for OBJ. That's a lot to give up, and well, I've been proved right. So it's one of those that I throw my opinion out there. Let's see what happens. But let's be frank. Corbett, bust. Callaway, bust. I would have been having Cortland Sutton, Landry. Who else did we have that I liked at the top of that second round? Gesicki. There were some great players. And we haven't got a running back. A running back is the best thing out of day 3. Tyrod Taylor, I said that was a bad move. And what happened? 2 games into the preseason, Baker outplays him. So
right.
I just throw my opinions out there, and so far, I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah. But I noticed you get a lot of shit on Twitter, man, and it's pretty funny because it's like, Landry, Chubb, and Chubb is now revered. Like almost in Cleveland, we can build a statue for Chubb. He's a 2-year player, but he's only going to last here 2 more years if you're the right front office. Like you can't pay running backs. So here you go with a great running back, maybe the best in the NFL right now, or top 3 or whatever you want to call him. So you've taken a lot of flack for that. I kind of wanted to start off with that just to put you on the back foot.
I'm up for it. If anyone can look me in the eye and tell me like Zeke should have got paid, Gurley should have got paid, David Johnson should have got paid, Lev Bell should have got paid, for real? And Chubb is...
None of them should have got paid, yeah.
Chubb is going to end up exactly the same way. The worst thing about the running back position is if they're really good, you don't pay them. And if they're really bad, you don't pay them. There's no hope. You need hope as a Browns fan, and especially as an NFL fan. Certainly as a Browns fan.
Yeah. So here we are with the Browns, and I don't even want to talk about this fucking game because it's the same thing that we've seen the entire season. I did like half-ass notes for this game. Arizona drives down the field. Arizona puts up 500 yards. Baker is mediocre. The defense is porous. The wide receivers, mediocre. David Njoku's inactive. What the fuck is the plan with this Cleveland Browns team? Like, I don't get what we're doing anymore. This season, at whatever we're at, 6 and 7, 6 and 8. This is worse than the 0-15, 0-16, 1-15. This is terrible. We were supposed to be good. This is the worst thing I've ever seen out of the Browns.
It is pretty atrocious because at least there was some hope. If you go back to like 0-16, it was like, we know what we're building towards. We're going to get all these high picks. We're moving forward. This was the year where we went all in. We're the most expensive team in the NFL, and you've got all this money, assets, everything's thrown at it. You're trading for OBJ, you're bringing Vernon in, you're going for it. Everything was go for it, and to say it's failed to deliver is an understatement.
I'm so frustrated with this team that I've done the podcast now we're on our 4th season. We've been through the bullshit, and we were expecting. You know what? I'm done. I'm done being hoodwinked by the Browns. What I think right now, it's not about Kitchens. It's not about Dorsey. It's about fucking Haslam, because he can't pick a coach. He can't stick with a plan. If you were going to stick with a plan, you should have stuck with Sashi. You should have stuck with Di Podesta. You should have stuck with that crew. You should have let them pick the coach. And they talked about it. It's going to be a roller coaster. When you get to the top of the cliff, it's going to be fucking scary. And you're going to want to get off the roller coaster. And Haslam jumped off the roller coaster and said, oh, look at this. He's a blue chip dude from Kansas City who's got a good, future. And then Dorsey has to pick a coach. Well, what we assume now, it's hard to tell actually what's going on with management, but we're assuming Dorsey picked Kitchens to be the coach of this team, and we're terrible. We're terrible. Like, it's a fucking train wreck. So you have any thoughts? Like, what do we do?
The bizarre thing is, I just don't know how much of a head coach Freddie Kitchens is even allowed to be. We saw it with who did we get rid of? It was Greg Robinson getting benched. Who made that decision? It was Dorsey's office where it happened. Lots of these decisions, rather than being what you would consider of, the head coach is making the decision, we're seeing the GM make decisions. Why is Njoku is inactive? I'm guessing that's a Dorsey decision. Why is Higgins barely playing? I'm guessing that's actually a Dorsey decision, and it's frustrating. And for me, I think Mike McCarthy has probably already bought a house in Cleveland. I think it's that close to being done. I can't see it going any other way. He can't gamble again, because if Dorsey gets this one wrong, Dorsey's gone. So Dorsey's going to go out and get a head coach. It's Mike McCarthy, because he just needs to get to the playoffs. He doesn't need a good season next year. He doesn't need a great season. We don't need to compete for a Super Bowl. He just has to get to the playoffs. If he gets to the playoffs, he gets another 3 years, at least another 2 years, because you're going to buy in and give him all of Baker's rookie time and some time after that. So if he gets Mike McCarthy in, gets us to the playoffs, and it doesn't matter if it's an 8-8 record and we get to the playoffs, is irrelevant. Just have to get there, and then suddenly he's got an extra 2 years and he can just keep going.
Well, that's sort of what I'm pissed off about the most. Is like we said before the season, 8-8 is a fucking disaster in Cleveland right now. There's too much talent on this team to go 8-8. And then come out of this with a shitty, playoff seeding. We're not going to make the playoffs this year. That's done. They missed the playoffs. OBJ, Landry, Chubb, Mayfield. And then, all of our listeners want to put this on Mayfield. He's had a poor season. Is it sophomore slump?
I think a big part comes down to the Zeitler move. I think the Zeitler move really shook him up. Because we saw him a lot more. He's just rushing to the right. AB was even ripping him on Twitter he was getting in the pocket and he just runs to the right, and he doesn't feel comfortable. You cannot, especially a shorter quarterback, you cannot destroy that interior of the O-line. We had the number one interior of the O-line last year. We had the number one pass blocking guard. What did we do? We shipped him out. And that just is bad logic. And by all means, if they're really confident, and they would have seen behind the scenes, because we didn't see what Corbett was up to. If they had seen behind the scenes and went, look, Corbett, he's going to be a top 16 right guard in the NFL. We've got this covered. And then fine, it's all okay. But you can't miss on Corbett. And they would have known that Corbett was a miss by then and go, we're all in on moving Zeitler on, keep Zeitler. And then suddenly it looks a lot better. And I think changing the wide receivers around a lot. You had Landry, Higgins, and Perryman, and it was working. And then suddenly you go, right, we're going to flip to OBJ and Landry, and it just sort of mixed everything up. So for me, I just think there was unnecessary change. And anytime you change anything on that O-line or the link sort of a quarterback's got with a wide receiver, you're messing with things you don't need to mess with.
Oh yeah, that's a fair call. I couldn't have been more excited when we brought in OBJ. It was like we won the fucking Super Bowl, you know? I was so excited. It was like, oh, now we have Landry, who's not a great athlete, but is a decent wide receiver. Like
phenomenal wide receiver too, because if he's wide receiver 2, he can do that. He's just not wide receiver 1. And that's fine. We saw last season he won a wide receiver 1. We've seen this season he is a wide receiver 2. He can do stuff when he's not covered by cornerback 1. And don't get me wrong, I was pumped about OBJ. I was drafting him high in fantasy leagues. I traded a boatload for him in a dynasty league. I was absolutely pumped to have a player like OBJ. I thought it was an overspend, but at the same time, don't get me wrong, I was absolutely pumped to have him on the roster because I thought this is going to be insane.
Yeah, I just think we just like the wool was pulled over our eyes. But the problem, I think, is not with our talent. I think the problem lies with our organization. And I'm not going to place that blame on Kitchens or Dorsey. I'm going to put it at the top. And Haslam has not ran a successful organization or a legal organization. He's ran successful illegal organizations. He's just a trash owner. What I'm really worried about is that we're stuck now in this purgatory with a trash owner. This is just it feels like Cleveland right now.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm annoyed about.
The worst thing we could do as a team is sort of stagnate at a sort of 6 to 9 win team and ruin all of Baker's rookie years, and suddenly we're like, oh no, we've got to pay him now, so let's get rid of $50 million worth of talent off the roster because that's what the rookie quarterback, that's what the quarterback pay might be by the time Baker's done and getting paid with the new CBA on the way. That could be $50 million a year, and that's it, done.
Yeah, and Garrett needs paid, and all these other people need paid. Right now, actually, what we're looking at on this fucking Browns team right now, which we would have never guessed at the beginning of the season, Randall's done. Njoku's done. Schobert sounds like he's on his way out. How did this fucking happen? We have 0 linebackers on this team. Oh, yeah. Mac Wilson? Everyone's going to tell me Mac Wilson's a player?
Here's a question for you. Guess Mac Wilson's PFF grade so far this season.
50 at best. Like
41.
Nothing.
41. It is horrendous. He shouldn't be on the field, according to PFF. It's that bad. It is that bad. It's shocking. And the fact that people are going, oh no, Taki and Matt Wilson, they've got this. And it's like, no, we haven't. It's awful because Joe Schobert got put in a position where Kirksey was always get let go at the end of this season because he was on a contract which he had the potential in the past to play to that level, so I've got no issue with giving it to him. It just didn't work out. And then you have to pay Joe Schobert. And I think we'll probably end up paying Joe Schobert. And it's going to be a desperate overpay left at the last minute. And it's just not going to work. Whereas we could have paid him just going into the last offseason. And we'd have had a field day because we'd got him a nice cheap deal. And it'd have all been tied up.
Absolutely should have paid him going into the last season. But they panicked. And then they're not sure. And this is what we're talking about. There's no fucking plan. There should be a fucking plan in place.
It's the contradictions of the plan as well, because we went all in, and John Dorsey might have done a press conference saying we're not all in. We were all in. This year and next year were our 2 best shots at winning a Super Bowl because Baker's a rookie deal. There's lots of cap there to pump in. You don't have to pay Garrett. You don't have to pay lots of these other players. So just go for it this year and next year. And the issue's then going to be, you brought in a rookie head coach. So you either go all in and you go, look, we'll bring in Arians, we'll give him 2 years. He was probably going to retire after that, but let's go for it. Or you go, let's continue the slow build. We haven't wasted too much assets in that sort of last season. Slow build again this year, and 3, 4, 5, 6, they're all going to be good years. And the issue is when it was like, right, let's go all in, let's spend over $25 million over the salary cap this year, that's not sustainable. And then suddenly you're like, right, we're going to be cutting on the back end of Baker's deal. So I had no issue with appointing Freddie, but then slow approach. You can't go, you either go all in or you do a slow approach. Meshing the two is the worst possible way to go.
Oh, you know what? That's a good point. Yeah, yeah. Where you're like, okay, Baker's got 5 years here, right? With his rookie deal. Garrett's got 4 more years here with his rookie deal. What we're seeing right now is so much worse than the 1-31 team that I saw. This is the low point of our podcast. I can't even put into words how disappointed I am. Almost because when we went 1-31, I knew we were going to go 1-31. Now we're just like, oh, we're gonna get to playoffs. The Steelers have a better record with us. Ben Roethlisberger is out. Their weapons are gone. They're a better team than we are. How is that fucking possible? We've bought in to the Browns bullshit once again. The irritation from me right now to go to Arizona and lose to a team that's lost 6 in a row, a 3-9-1 team, and actually just not show up. I don't think the Browns even wanted to be there.
Yeah, and
if it's Kitchens, if it's Dorsey, if it's the players, at this point it doesn't fucking matter. Something has to be different.
Yeah, and the thing is, it was the expectations, but it was also, we knew what we were doing it for, and we knew the reason why we went 1-31. And the issue is, it wasn't for this, and that's what sucks most. Because if you'd have just been tinkering along as a team, as a sort of 7-9 win team, and you have a season like this, it's like, it's not the end of the world. There's some promise, and you can go somewhere. When you tank to then go and win, you have to do better. And Dorsey's had the biggest asset list that anyone's ever had in the history of the NFL, and it was just squandered, and it's basically all gone. And that's not an understatement. It's nearly all gone. And what have you got for it? Not enough. So that for me is the frustration. I came in as a Browns fan because Paul DePodesta joined the Browns. That was the day I became a Browns fan. And
oh shit! Yeah, that's awesome.
And so I was all bought into this because it was like, analytics has the answer, and the answers were all there, and it was all going exactly the way it should have been going. And there was some stuff I called them out. Taking a wide receiver in the first round, I did not like that one bit. There was moves. Sashi was certainly not perfect, don't get me wrong, but there was a solid idea, and the idea was keep adding assets, keep adding more, because you can never have enough cheap players, because then when you want to go out and spend, you spend really well. So whether you get a Tretter, top 16 centre in the NFL, you could argue probably a lot higher. You then go let's get Zeitler. Oh, what's that? Turned number 1 pass blocking guard in the NFL last season. It was like, there was a lot of smart spending, but it's just spending in mediation and not wasting it. Whereas we've seen like Carey on silly money, Hubbard, silly money. Loads of these players have just got contracts that they're not fit to be playing on. Tyrod Taylor, was it 16 million for 2 preseason games? It's madness. And that for me is what the frustration's been this season, because it's like, right, if you're going to pull the blinds off the horse and just go, we're going to bolt, we're going to go for the finish line, we're going to do this, then you have to deliver. And it's been literally lift off the blinds and the horse has just stood still. We haven't gone forward anywhere. And that's what sucked. That is the most frustrating and just soul-destroying part of this season.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, and Greg said it in the last podcast, and there's no answers for this shit.
It's going to suck this offseason. This offseason is not going to be as fun, because last season it was a really fun offseason. There was moves, there was stuff. Yeah. It was crazy. I still think it will be good next year, and I know I'm probably going to be one of the only people saying this. I actually think next year will be really good, because expectations is going to come down a lot. There's going to be a lot of people that are unhappy and not fully behind the team, and that's fine. I fully understand that. But when you sort of get the balances of it, so if we look at sort of the first half of last season when Hugh was in, we were underperforming and then we started overperforming, and these things balance their way self out. And sometimes it takes more than one season to balance it out. Lots of players have underperformed this year. They're probably likely to then overperform next year. So it's just purely probability, stuff like that. You have that bounce and balance and things happen. So if they can get the coaching right and they can come back, and everyone's going to work twice as hard because they all look like idiots. Everyone looks like idiots in that building. whether it's the front office, whether it's the coaching staff, whether it's the players, and they are going to fight harder than ever before. So do keep on surviving, but I am going to preach optimism. It's not going to be we'll win the Super Bowl next year optimism. I do think it'll be a damn sight a lot better than this year.
Oh, no, I agree with you. What I'm upset about is the amount of effort we put into this team, and then to see them come out in week one, that egg that they dropped against the Titans.
Yeah.
And then people gave us shit about criticizing the Browns. I was criticizing their fucking performance in the preseason, and people were like, no, they're fine. They're fine. They're fine. OBJ's comment. That offense isn't good. Offense wasn't good in preseason. That offense wasn't good in week one. And then you go to a shitty New York Jets team in week two. That offense wasn't good. And what we've seen from the Browns each week in and out is a team that even when they won, they came out and thought, pretty lucky to win the game. They can't roll this back, right? They can't roll back this management or coaching staff and go, we're good for next year. I'm not sure we can do Dorsey Kitchens next year.
Yeah, I think before the Cardinals game, I was a lot more on board with rolling it back. It was the continuity. It's let's build on it. Let's keep going and just keep it the way it is. But after that game, it's tough to sit there and say that again. And it just sucked everything out, because it was like, even though we beat the Bengals, there was still that sort of, right, there's elements there. There was sort of 5-10 plays where you went, yeah, that was good. And the issue that always winds me up with Browns fans, it was like, you've either got to be 100% on board with the team all the time. And it's like, do they honestly think Bill Belichick sat there after that Cincinnati Bengals game that the Patriots played the weekend going, oh, well done, lads. Well done. We'll continue doing better next week. Well played, everyone. And he's going to be ripping absolute lumps out of them. It wasn't good enough. And just because you win, or just because it's okay, or, oh, they're my team, we do have the right to criticise. And if something isn't going right, you criticise it. And that's for everyone on the team, everyone on the thing. And I'll praise them when they do something well. When that JC Tretter contract came out, I was criticising JC's agent, but I was praising Dorsey and whoever in the front office done that. It was a fantastic contract.
That's a team-friendly contract.
Yeah. And it was like, well, look, I'll call out the good stuff, but I'm gonna question when it's bad. And when stuff happens that's awful, the whole fan idea, and it's all sports, it's not just Browns fans or anything, it's like, oh, you can't say that about your team. And it's like, what? If Bill Belichick can say it about his players, then me as a fan isn't going to like upset a player and be like, oh, I want to leave Cleveland. Jack Duffin said, I'm not delivering on my contract.
Right, on some podcast, yeah.
There is positives. It is going into this season, I still don't disagree. This is the most talented roster on paper in the NFL. Unfortunately, what's on paper doesn't matter. And I did say that at the time. But that talent is still there. That talent hasn't evaporated. We can still add more pieces. And that's going to mean some smart off-season moves, and really sign in a couple of players. And then whether it's a little dip in free agency, making them right picks in the draft, this team can get a lot better, and it can still be a 10-win team next year. I genuinely believe that. But there just needs to be that sort of change in mentality. And I don't know, behind the scenes, we're not privy to enough of that stuff. And that's why all the way through the coaching search last year, I said, look, I can sit here and go, I like this guy, I like that guy. None of us, even the media, they don't see enough of what's actually going on behind the scenes. And what difference does it make moving from Hugh to Haley to Greg Williams to Freddie Kitchens, Moncton in the building? None of us know. There's everyone talking, oh, this coordinator's done really well. How do we know? We're not sat there in the meeting room with the wide receivers going, oh, this is what Adam Henry's done. We have got no idea. And that's the one thing you have to put in your front office. You have to go, look, guys, you've got to get this right. We can sit here and watch tape. We can go, I like that prospect. We shouldn't draft that guy. When it comes to making coaching staff deliver, you've got to put your faith in the front office. And quite frankly, I don't have any.
Yeah, we're just here doing podcasts. What's going on in those rooms, we don't know. When they hired Freddie, I'm like, okay, that seems like a good hire. But the downfall is he's a first-year head coach. It's not going to be an easy fucking transition. I remember talking about it like at the beginning of the season. We need to see some adversity. What happens when they face adversity? And they faced adversity in week 1, and they never got it back. Pete Smith, one of our friends of the podcast, just wrote a story on Browns Maven, and he said Baker needs to be himself. He needs to be that confident dude, and he's not that. All we see at the end of games is disappointed Browns, win or lose. We see Freddie Kitchens has aged. He's almost in tears at this point. He's got no idea what's going on. Landry's arguing. Beckham's unhappy. What the fuck are we doing? How did we get here?
Yeah, and it's at the point where this offseason should have been looking at, let's tweak a couple of things. And I'm just going to run through the list of starters I think we're going to be after in this offseason. Tight end when they get rid of Njoku, a left tackle, a right guard, wide receiver 3. You're looking at a defensive tackle, because it wouldn't surprise me if Ogunjobi's gone. 2 linebackers potentially, if they get rid of Joe Schobert, and 2 free safeties. That's 10 starters in 22 positions. That is awful. That is what the issue is. That mostly should have been locked up. By all means, you're going to need, say, 4 starters going into every 4, 5, 6 would have been okay. 10 starters out of 22 spots, and we have spent an insane amount of assets. And it's just the fact that we're going to discard some of these players that.
Yeah, I just feel like we're behind the ball now. Well, Kirksey wasn't good, but when you bring Mac Wilson in, you're like, well, fucking Kirksey was okay, Jermaine Whitehead.
Oh, man.
Playing that many snaps.
I was excited.
Come on.
There was loads of buzz there. He sort of got the nickel down, and it's all going to come together. And I was like, okay, I'll give you a shot. And it didn't work. And for me, I always use PFF to humble myself, because a player like Ogunjobi for the last sort of 2 years before this, I was getting really pumped about and really like what he does to the team. But I always then look at PFF because they didn't rate him that well. And it's the issue you get, and it's not wrong that you see a player make a splash play and you're like, that's awesome. That's what we want. Quite frankly, splash plays don't matter in this scheme of an entire game. If you're below average for 95% of snaps, and on 5% of snaps, you do something above average or a splash play, that's not a player I want on my team. Certainly not on my defense. If you're on your offense, that's not too bad, because a wide receiver that 1 in 20 balls does something amazing is okay. But if you're on the defensive side, you've got to be better than that. And that's why I regularly go look at PFF grades, and I go, and sometimes I get in touch with John Costco, Brendan Leister, any of these guys, and just be like, guys, what on earth's going wrong with this player? Because I thought he was playing quite well. And your grades are completely the opposite. And it's important just to go out there and look at the PFF grades and just humble yourself sometimes, because you get excited about a player. I love David Njoku. David Njoku has been a player I absolutely love. Don't get me wrong. He's made a few mistakes, but when you put some of this stuff into perspective of like last season, Landry had a higher drop percentage than Njoku. Lots of fans remember the big sort of Njoku and they think Njoku drops, whereas he was actually had better hands than Jarvis Landry, and no one's sitting there going, oh, Jarvis Landry dropping machine. You've got to look at some of the data, some of the PFF stuff, and it's just about balancing that entire season, because what happens in 1 or 2 plays can cloud everything else. So,
sometimes it comes down to like where the play is. You need that playmaker to make a play on a play that isn't expected. That's what we expected out of Beckham. Mayfield last year, when we were at 3rd and 12, I had no doubt we were going to pick up a first down. This year, we get to like 3rd and 4. I know we're punting.
I think Baker's going to come back even stronger next season. And the issue's been with Baker as well. So lots of the more recent sort of rookie QBs is they didn't have a good first season, and then they had a really good second season. And then sometimes in the third, it drops off a little bit. Whereas Baker had that phenomenal first season. He set the TD record for a rookie, and he missed a chunk of the season. And then the second year is almost like the second and first year the wrong way round. And it's, can he just get the confidence with that O-line? Because the interior left is fine. Tretta, Batonio, no issue there. But that's affecting their play. I think the reason why Tretta's not been as good this year, because last year he was like, Batonio's got that guy, Zeitler's got that guy, I've got one guy, we're all good. And it was like the tackles didn't have too much because that was 3 of, say, the 4 rushing. They're locked up. And it was like one of the tackles has to do someone, or if someone blitzes, the other tackle's gone. Whereas this year, it's like, right, who's playing right guard firstly, because that changes every week, and he's useless. So I've got to keep an eye on getting a secondary block on that guy when, whether it's Cush, whether it's Teller, misses that guy, I've got to block 2 guys. And that's not where you want to be. So for me, the whole, it's not just Baker to struggle with the loss of Zeitler, it's Tretta as well. And that's not on his fault.
Actually, that's a great point, because everyone can make everybody better. I think Baker made Greg Robinson a lot of money last year. Baker probably made Higgins a little bit of money until we got into this year.
I think that at prediction time, Higgins is going to be a Philadelphia Eagle in the offseason. Lock that one in. Andrew Berry will tell Harry Roseman. Harry Roseman loves a bargain. He is going to sign him up either to a 1-year prove it deal, or he's going to go get a 3-year deal and an absolute. It's going to be unbelievable what they then sign him for, and then he will go play really well. And Browns fans will be like, "Why didn't he do that in Cleveland? Because he weren't on the field." And then in Joker, trade to the Patriots. That's what I've decided today. He's going to get traded to the Patriots, and he has become the heir to Rob Gronkowski. You heard it here first.
Daryl Ryder, one of our favorites on the podcast, writing that he's running the wrong routes, dropping balls. He's a weapon, and he's 23. He's going to get better.
And we were playing the team with the worst tight end defense in the NFL. And what did we do? We had 5 targets, I think, to tight ends for the entire game. That was just lack of a game plan. Yeah, Ricky Seals-Jones got 2 touchdowns. 5 targets. I think it was 5 targets. It might have been 4 receptions, 6 targets. And it's like, what planet are we on that it's like their weakness is tight ends, and let's bench tight end. The funny thing is, going into that week, if you would have told me at the start of the week, we're going to bench a player for running the wrong routes and dropping passes, I would have put money on that to be OBJ and not actually Njoku. And that's where the whole lunacy of it is, that one player gets dropped for running the wrong routes and dropping balls, and the other one gets forced the ball more. And it's like, what are you doing? And it was like that first OBJ one where Baker threw it over his head. That's not an OBJ. But Njoku could have jumped that high and actually caught it, because the guy is a freak. And it's just, it's madness. It's absolute madness.
The whole thing's so fucking frustrating to me. I'm so frustrated with Freddie and Dorsey. All of it is on Haslam.
Every time I see a rumor that someone is interested in buying a team, I just pray it's the Cleveland Browns, especially if it's someone that's made a load of money in anything intelligent, because that is a good direction I want to be in. Or just willing to pass it all over to someone else, because the owner literally has to do one thing: hire a GM, and everything else they can just go, it's not my problem, guys. I'm going to sit in the old fancy box. I'm going to have a whale of time.
Checks.
Yeah, sign checks, drink beer, and just enjoy it. And that's all you've got to do as the owner. By all means, most of the owners do some fantastic charitable stuff on the side, but quite frankly, in terms of football, appoint the GM and get out of the way. And that's it. It's as simple as that.
I agree. Haslam has proven himself to be nothing of a upstanding citizen. He's hired 44 coaches in 7 years. Like, we've had how many coaches? And we have another fucking coaching problem. We probably have another GM problem. We're starting all over. We have no GM. We have no coach. I'm not even sure we have a fucking quarterback.
Oh.
I mean, I love Baker, but...
Mate, he's classy.
What are we doing?
You've got the receipts. They know I'm out there. I did say in this offseason, people need to slow the hype on Baker. And if he doesn't turn into a top 8 quarterback, you don't pay him at the end of his rookie deal. And everyone was like, he's already in the Hall of Fame. What are you saying? And it was just it was just a reasonable point I put out there. I said, guys, he's played like 3/4 of a season.
Yeah.
Don't pretend like he's already got his bust being built for the Hall of Fame. It's like, we don't even know if this guy's a top 8 quarterback. And that's the bar for me. If they're not a top 8 quarterback, you don't pay him, you just move on, trade him, get someone else in. And that for me is because the number one value in NFL and all the professional sports is a rookie quarterback contract. So if you're not going to be a top
I think that's what I was asking you about your Twitter account, because you were like, you've taken so much flack about Baker. You've taken flack about Miles. People are saying, would you trade Miles? And you're like, yeah, I would trade Miles.
And I'm on record. If anyone offers me 2 first-round picks for any player, unless they're a top 8 quarterback in the NFL, after their rookie deal, they are gone. Everyone's up for sale. Let it be known, if I ever run a team, that sale sign is up and available. So by all means, guys, come call him, because there is no player worth that much. Look what happened to Khalil Mack. They paid him. They gave up the 2 first-round picks. He's not worth that. And then they had to pay him. And that's a lot of stuff you're doing. You're losing the value of 2 first-round picks. So that's 2 cheap players that have gone in the Khalil Mack trade. And then they gave up the opportunity to replace the Biscuit, one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And then they had to give up all the money as well. It was just an absolute disaster in Chicago. So quite frankly, the sell signs up. I love Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's a phenomenal player. Possibly top 5 defensive player in the NFL right now. Well, obviously if he's playing. But he is available for 2 first rounds once his first 4 years are done. If anyone calls me, he's on the plane. 2 first-round picks are 2 first-round picks. Keep filling that young talent there. And for me, the talent, it always wins out. You can keep adding talent as long as you're doing the right thing.
Yeah. I'm not getting hoodwinked anymore. I'm tired of being positive about this shit and being wrong. Fuck.
Even though I come out and slate some of this stuff, I'm getting just as excited as everyone else. If you go back to my podcast with Paul, pre-season predictions, I was as wrong as everyone else. So just because I go out and go, that's a bad trade, that's a bad signing, that's a bad contract, I'm still just as excited.
Yeah.
It's one of those that it's just like a spade's a spade to me. It really doesn't bother me. If you sign a bad player, you sign a bad player. I'm still cheering for that player. I'm still wanting that player to win. Unless it was Jarvis Landry. Yeah. If Landry got 1,000 yards last season, I was shaving my head bald. So he just missed out. So that was the one thing I was not cheering for. For me, I'm just counting down the days till D. Podesta becomes GM. Go on, there's a solid prediction for you. Depot. It's a good hashtag as well. Hashtag Depot for GM. You capitalize the D, capitalize the P. It looks beautiful. I'll get it. But it's one of those. We do have some of the right people in the room, but how much does he get listened to? Because Haslam, to credit him, he brought the right guy in. He went out there and he went, let's bring in D. Podesta. And what did D. Podesta say? He said, look, let's have the rebuild. That sheet came out. I forget who leaked it.
I love that sheet. Yeah. I have that in my phone.
Full of just really intelligent stuff. And what did he say? He said, get Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott's the GM we need. The head coach we need. And what did we do? We're not going to do that. And then, get Stefanski. Stefanski's the guy. He's forward thinking. This is the one. And no, we're not going to get that. And he said, don't get Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, no, it's not. Was it top 8, top 10? No, what was happening? Oh, he's right. Carson Wentz isn't the top 8 quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
And it's like, Jimmy Haslam made one good hire. And I'm going to say Sashi, but one phenomenal hire, and that is Paul D. Podesta. Paul D. Podesta has been right nearly every single time, and he still seems to get ignored. That is probably the most frustrating thing in the world, because we do have the right ideas in the building. They're just not getting listened to.
I feel like we might be the worst run team. Dude, we got to get out of here. I know we're running out of time, and I appreciate you coming on. You're on the
Paul Brown podcast. Paul Brown, you've probably seen him on Twitter. Me and him do a podcast. It was daily. It's about 5 days a week, I think, now. I've taken a step back, so you only get me once or twice a week. It's all my current job allows, so it keeps me nice and busy. But any questions, whether it's cat, anything like that, by all means, tweet at me. It's at Jack Duffin, JackDuffin. DMs are open as well. So there's a few people jump in there just with cap questions of restricted free agent, what happens, what does that mean? So if it's stuff you don't want to tweet, just fire it in the DMs, guys. I'm always happy to answer it. I'll get back to it as soon as I can. But no, I absolutely love these guys. They are my favourite Browns podcast. I have so much fun listening to them. When I became a Browns fan, and it took me about a year to find podcasts because I didn't really listen to any before, I actually went back and right to the start and had so much fun going back sort of after all the mess that have been and going, right, let's listen to all this. Let's see it all again. And no, I don't think I got back to first season. I think it was the off season of the 0-16 season. That's the one I listened to the whole thing, and it was so much fun. But you keep getting better, lads. I absolutely love it. It's the only thing that keeps me sane.
I appreciate you doing cap work, because there's not many people doing cap work, and we've actually referenced your work, and we try to shout you out when it's applicable. So, dude, thanks for coming on and sitting in for Greg. Our Twitter is at STS Podcast. Our email is survivingseason@gmail.com. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and thank you, Jack, for coming on. Appreciate it.
I think you're going to get better next year, guys. So keep on surviving.